Hello, everybody. How are you doing on this fine Friday? There we go. I'm doing quite well. I did want to come in and just update y'all on what's going on in court. There have been 3 more filings since the last court filings update I made. And the TLDR is that they are arguing, Diddy's side and the government's side are arguing back and forth over who should be covered by this gag order. So Diddy's lawyer is really upset. They also have a whole entire other filing going on right now having to do with whether or not the government leaked grand jury materials. So Diddy's lawyer is accusing them up one side of the courtroom and down the other side of the courtroom in the appeals court and this court of leaking documents, not only leaking documents, but leaking other evidence. And not only that, but Diddy and his lawyer are also accusing the government side of doing improper, unallowed interviews in the press. Now, the last video I made on this, we did discuss what articles that Diddy's lawyer took specific issue with. There was some CNN in the mix. There was some TMZ. There was like Daily something, Beast or Blast or something like Mail or something. I don't know, one of those, Daily something. And Diddy's lawyer is basically saying, no, Your Honor, look at all these Homeland Security people, all these different people who are coming around through here and doing all these interviews. No, we need to make sure that they cannot do that anymore. Well, the government has now filed their response, and the government says, yes, we agree. We do agree on one thing, and that is there's some debate. It's up for debate. It's up at issue who this gag order is going to apply to, who it's going to restrain. Now, the government says that they have only given grand jury material to some people, and the government is kind of like, look, listen, here's the letter. The government is like, we don't even have control over them. Look, the only remaining disagreement, this one right here was filed October 23rd, so 2 days ago. The only remaining disagreement between the parties is the language concerning who would be bound by the order. The government's proposed order reflects the reality, blah, blah, blah. The government says the defendants, that's Sean P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Combs, citing no authority, have insisted that such an order, the gag order, should bind any local and federal law enforcement agents assisting any aspect of the investigation or prosecution of the above referenced case. The government, that's Damian Williams, he said that is plainly overbroad. This just applies to too many people. He said, and another thing, these purported leaks that Diddy and his lawyer are just so upset about, they have not been of grand jury material. So Diddy and his lawyer have been squawking up a storm in your courtroom, Your Honor. That's what, I'm paraphrasing here. But come to find out, they're not really being completely forthcoming or necessarily honest about what they're talking about, because they keep saying that we're leaking grand jury stuff, but the stuff they saying was leaked wasn't grand jury material. I don't know which side's true. I'm just reading the documents. The government says courts have previously rejected requests to sanction the government on the basis of potential leaks by law enforcement officers of other agencies that they don't have control over. He's like, we don't have control over these people. That's ridiculous and preposterous. Even if we wanted to, how can we make all these 200,000? It's like 400,000 people total or something. It's like a whole lot of people. He's like, it's ridiculous, Your Honor. Our proposed language, he says, will say this is his proposed language on the side of the government. Assisting United States attorneys assigned to the above referenced matter and staff members working under their supervision or at their direction. And then see the yellow highlighted part. All local and federal law enforcement agents whom the government has provided with access to grand jury materials. Okay, that's the people who shall not disclose any. So honestly, I think I'm gonna side with the government on this one. I'm going to side with the government on this one. And the reason is because I do not know how the government is supposed to stop all these 200, 400,000 people from doing something. I think if the government has provided these people with the access to the materials, then yeah, that's who, like, okay, let's say they give it to John Doe down the street, and then John Doe goes bring it to TMZ. Yeah, no, they should definitely be held responsible for that because they gave it to John Doe, right? That's what their language says. And on this one, I'm going to say I think I do side with the government. But that's not all, because we do have Diddy filing the very next day, doubling down, being like, no, Your Honor, no, just as we had already said, you have to listen to us over here, because this is Diddy's right here the next day. So this is yesterday and only one day after the one we just read. It says, as Mr. Combs requested, this is from Agnifilo, the order should cover all local and federal law enforcement agents assisting any aspect of the investigation or prosecution of the above referenced case, including Department of Homeland Security. Diddy's lawyer said that request is not plainly overbroad. Actually, it just specifically orders any individuals not to disclose any grand jury material. I see what he's trying to do here. I appreciate he's zealously advocating for his client, but that's like saying, okay, well, if some YouTuber online, Keemstar, goes and discloses grand jury material, then it's going to be the government's fault. It's like he could have got that in any way in that hypothetical situation. But I do see where Mark Agnifilo is coming from, because it probably is very frustrating. The purpose of the order is to end what has been a demonstrated history of law enforcement leaks, as well as false and damaging public statements by agents to facilitate the fairness of these proceedings. So he's saying, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Maybe there's only 3 agents at the DHS or whatever that have access to this material. But Agnifilo says the government is ignoring the practical realities of how this investigation has unfolded and how it will continue to unfold. Basically, the investigation is unfolding in tangent to the media because all these public statements are coming out in the filings. So then there was one final filing that I do just want to cover so that we can make sure that we've covered everything, or as much as possible. I want to cover as many of these filings as I can. And this still all has to do with the proposed gag order. This filing we're reading right now, I'm about to pull up, was just filed today. This one again, Diddy double texted to the judge over here. It's another letter from Agnifilo, and it says, defendant Sean Combs respectfully submits this additional letter in further support of the need for this very broad gag order. Why? Agnifilo says this is filed today. This morning, the New York Post published an article, and they attached it as Exhibit A, containing false, inflammatory, prejudicial remarks attributed to a federal law enforcement source who is involved in the government's investigation. Okay, so Mark Agnifilo has had it. He has had it up to his skull. He is incensed. He is infuriated. He is livid. He said, Your Honor, hate to double text, but this morning, the New York Post is quoting this person, a federal law enforcement source involved in the investigation, but it's false, inflammatory, prejudicial remarks, Your Honor. This is from Diddy, or his lawyer. Mark Agnifilo goes on, the article describes purported videos and photos supposedly depicting Diddy, and notes that the Post described the scenes to the federal agent for comment. So the article describes the purported videos and photos. So in this article that came out today, there are photos and videos that are referenced. They're referenced, but the photos are not included. It's like we're talking about photos. There's no photos. It says it describes the photos, and it notes that the Post described the scenes to the federal agent for comment. The federal agent, who's apparently allegedly working on this investigation, was quoted as saying the following, quote, these are consistent with the videos I have. Another quote that was attributed, quote, just about everything you can imagine was happening at Diddy's parties. Now our job is to determine whether this was consensual for everyone involved, or if anyone was being T-ficked and what laws have been broken. So that's a quote, right? This is Mark Agnifilo including quotes to the judge. Your Honor, look what these people are saying out here. Another quote, it's sick, bleep. And then the final quote, look, if this were just him having parties with a bunch of adults, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Now, this is, again, attributed to a federal law enforcement source involved in the investigation. Quote, that's perfectly legal. He's saying it's perfectly legal if it's a bunch of adults doing a freaky party or whatever. But, quote, that is not what we're talking about. This man is a predator. Ooh, Mark Agnifilo has had it. His letter from today to the judge goes on to say, the federal agent's statements clearly constitute opinions by a government agent that have a substantial likelihood of interfering with a fair trial or otherwise prejudicing the due administration of justice. He said, on top of that, it's false. Mark Agnifilo says, there's no videos of people doing all of that at parties, nor has the government alleged this as part of the indictment. So Mark Agnifilo is saying they're out here talking about Diddy. They're out here talking about S at parties, saying it's not consensual, saying there's videos. Mark Agnifilo is saying, but hold on. They didn't even mention that in the indictment, anything about a video in a S party. And on top of that, somebody just slammed the door, so I lost my train of thought. But yeah, two big issues. You know, the one was, there aren't any videos of the sort, so it's not true. Now, look, was I there? I don't know if there's videos or not. It's just in dispute right now in court whether it is. Mark and Diddy say no videos existed of them having S at parties. The second thing is the government hasn't even included that as part of the indictment, so I don't know why this federal law enforcement agent would even be out here saying this. Okay, so that's Mark Agnifilo's point. It says, in the absence of evidence, however, law enforcement has intentionally made false and damaging statements to one of the primary news sources in New York City, read by potential grand jurors and trial jurors. The latest article, Mark Agnifilo says, underscores the need for the court's order to be appropriately expansive and to cover any and all agents in a position to have access to these videos, not just the ones that they specifically gave the access. Now, like I mentioned earlier, there's a whole nother lawsuit. There's a whole bunch of other stuff still going on over whether or not the government leaked grand jury materials. Now, we did get a little flavor of what the arguments are going to be in these 3 filings and the one that I read in the video before this one, and then the 3 in this video. But we will have to see what they argue further. I mean, they could be filing stuff right now. I don't know. But as of right now, these are the most 3 recent filings. I wanted to catch y'all up, and that's all I really had for right now. In the meantime, facts ain't defamation, and I certainly do not know I was not there. Love you, mean it. Okay, bye.
Welcome into my world. You're playing my game. Thought that you could come up and they're fitting off of my name. Talking out the side of your neck like you're insane. Cortisol levels to the roof. Inflame. Kids these days so shameless. Selling out real friends for a paycheck. Mama didn't teach them no home training. Wanna be me so bad, but they failing. Step to the plate though. I'll take a challenger. I ain't scared of no low life scavenger. I should warn you though, if you haven't heard, I ain't no Colleen ukulele ballanger. Shots been fired. Run and tell that. Say it to my face though. Now behind my back. Won't be long till you share it in a group chat. And when I call you up, you're gonna backtrack. And you should've kept my name out your mouth.